What if every time you vent your problems, you're silently giving away your power? Picture this. You're unloading your stress, your frustrations, your life's chaos to anyone who'll listen, hoping for relief, for understanding, but instead of feeling stronger, you feel smaller, stuck in a loop of your own complaints. Carl Jung, the genius behind modern psychology, taught us that true strength comes from individuation, the journey to become your most authentic, powerful self. And here's the hard truth. Constantly sharing your problems isn't helping you grow, it's holding you back. Welcome to Stop Telling People Your Problems. No one really cares, where we'll uncover why emotional dumping drains you and how to reclaim your power through self-awareness and action. Inspired by Carl Jung's wisdom on confronting your shadow, those hidden fears driving you to seek validation, this video reveals 4 transformative steps to break the cycle of venting and start building a life of strength and respect. You'll meet people like Anna, who stopped ranting and started rising, and learn practical ways to shift your mindset from chaos to clarity. This isn't about bottling up your feelings, it's about choosing who deserves your story and focusing on solutions that move you forward. By the end, you'll know how to stop depending on others' sympathy and start owning your narrative. If you're ready to take back your power and live with purpose, hit that subscribe button, tap the bell, and stick around, because these 4 steps will change how you see yourself and how the world sees you. Let's dive in. What if every time you vent your frustrations, you're handing over the keys to your personal power, emotional dumping, spilling your problems, fears, and complaints to anyone who'll listen feels like relief in the moment. But here's the harsh truth. It's a trap. Every rant, every tearful story, every complaint you share without purpose chips away at your strength, leaving you feeling smaller, more helpless, and stuck in a cycle you didn't even see coming. Carl Jung, the visionary psychologist, taught us about the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves, like the need for validation or fear of being unseen, that drive our actions when we don't confront them. When you emotionally dump, you're letting your shadow take the wheel, and it's steering you straight into a dead end. In this first step, we'll explore why emotional dumping drains your power and how it keeps you from the life you're meant to live. Let's dive in. Emotional dumping is more than just venting. It's a habit that tricks you into thinking you're processing your problems when you're actually reinforcing them. Imagine you're carrying a heavy backpack. Each time you share your struggles without a plan to solve them, you're not lightening the load. You're adding another rock to it. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow explains why, deep down, we all have insecurities, fears of being ignored, rejected, or not enough. When you dump your problems on others, you're often seeking validation to quiet those fears. It feels good for a moment when someone nods or says, "That sucks." But that fleeting sympathy doesn't fix anything. Instead, it feeds your shadow, reinforcing the belief that you need others to make you feel okay. Over time, this creates a cycle where your problems become your identity, and your power, the ability to shape your own life, slips away. Let's make this real with a story. Meet Anna, a 29-year-old office worker who was known as the go-to person for her colleagues' complaints whenever she faced stress-tight deadlines, a micromanaging boss, or even personal struggles like a tough breakup. She'd share it all at the office water cooler. "My boss is driving me crazy," she'd say, or "I can't believe he ghosted me." At first, her colleagues listened, offering quick sympathy. But over time, Anna noticed something. Her co-workers started avoiding her. They'd give short replies or change the subject. Her rants didn't solve her problems. They made her feel more stuck. Her confidence dwindled, and she started seeing herself as the overwhelmed one in the group. Why? Because every time she dumped her emotions, she was telling herself and others that she couldn't handle her life. Her shadow, the fear of not being enough, was running the show. Carl Jung taught that true growth comes from facing your shadow, not feeding it. When you emotionally dump, you're not just sharing, you're outsourcing your emotional strength. You're saying, I need someone else to make this okay. And while it might feel like connection, it's often dependency. People don't respect dependency. They respect strength. Anna's turning point came when she read about Carl Jung's idea of individuation, the process of becoming your whole, authentic self. She realized her constant venting was keeping her stuck in a victim mindset. So, she decided to try something new. The next time her boss frustrated her, instead of ranting to a coworker, she paused. She wrote down her feelings in a journal, asking, what's really bothering me here? What can I do about it? She identified one small action, setting a boundary by politely asking her boss for clearer deadlines. To her surprise, her boss respected the request. Anna felt a spark of control she hadn't felt in months. Over time, she stopped unloading her problems and started solving them. Her colleagues noticed the change. They began seeking her input, respecting her calm confidence. By confronting her shadow and choosing action over venting, Anna reclaimed her power. This is why emotional dumping is so dangerous. It's not just about what you're saying to others, it's about what you're saying to yourself. Carl Jung believed our psyche is shaped by the stories we tell. When you repeatedly share your problems without a plan, you're training your brain to see you as powerless. You're not just venting, you're rehearsing a narrative of helplessness. And the more you rehearse it, the more real it becomes. Your brain starts to filter your world through that lens, noticing every slight, every obstacle, every reason to feel stuck. But here's the flip side. When you stop dumping and start focusing on solutions, you rewrite that narrative. You tell your brain, I'm capable, I'm in control. And that shift changes everything. So, how do you break this cycle first? Recognize when you're emotionally dumping. Are you sharing to process and solve, or just to feel heard? If it's the latter, you're giving away your power. Second, pause before you vent. Take a deep breath and ask, is this helping me move forward? If not, redirect your energy. Write your thoughts in a journal. Go for a walk. Or identify one small action you can take. Third, face your shadow. Ask yourself, why do I feel the need to share this? Am I seeking validation or avoiding responsibility? Be honest, it's not easy, but it's liberating. Finally, start small. The next time you're tempted to rant, try Anna's approach instead of talking. Act. Maybe it's addressing a coworker's behavior, setting a boundary, or tackling one part of your problem. Each action, no matter how small, builds your confidence and shifts your identity from victim to victor. Emotional dumping might feel like a release, but it's a leash. It ties you to your problems, keeping you stuck in a cycle of complaints. Carl Jung's wisdom reminds us that true power lies in integrating your shadow, acknowledging your fears without letting them define you. When you stop handing your problems to others, you start taking control of your life. You become someone who doesn't just talk about what's wrong, but does something about it. And that's magnetic. That's what earns respect, not just from others, but from yourself. Stay tuned for the next step, where we'll explore how your brain believes what you repeat and how to rewrite your story for growth. Word count, 614 words. I'll continue to expand to 1,000 words below to meet your requirement. Let's deepen this with another example. Consider Jake, a 5-year-old graphic designer who felt overwhelmed by freelance life. Every missed deadline or difficult client sent him into a spiral of venting to his friends. "This client is impossible," he'd text, or "I'm drowning in work." His friends would sympathize, but nothing changed. Jake felt trapped, and his constant complaints made him feel less capable. One day, he stumbled across Carl Jung's concept of the shadow and realized his venting was driven by a fear of failure. He decided to stop. Instead of texting his friends about a tough client, he wrote a list of actionable steps: renegotiate the deadline, clarify expectations, or drop the client if needed. When he followed through, he felt a surge of control. His friends noticed he was calmer, more focused. They started asking for his advice instead of just listening to his complaints. Jake's shift from dumping to doing didn't just solve his problems, it changed how he saw himself. This pattern isn't just about personal interactions, it's about how you show up in the world. When you emotionally dump, you're signaling to others that you're not in control. People might listen, but they're less likely to see you as a leader, a problem solver, or someone worth respecting. Carl Jung's teachings on individuation remind us that becoming your authentic self means taking responsibility for your emotional world. You don't need others to validate your struggles. You need to validate your ability to overcome them. By stopping the cycle of emotional dumping, you're not just protecting your energy, you're building a foundation of strength that others can't help but notice. To make this practical, try this challenge for one day. Catch yourself before you vent. If you feel the urge to complain, write it down instead. Ask, "What's one thing I can do about this?" Then do it. Maybe it's emailing a client to clarify a project, saying no to an overwhelming request, or taking a walk to clear your head. These small acts of agency add up, rewiring your brain to focus on solutions. As Carl Jung would say, confronting your shadow isn't about ignoring your pain, it's about using it to grow. When you stop emotional dumping, you stop giving your power away. You start building a life where you're the one in charge. And that's where true transformation begins. What if the story you keep telling about your problems is actually shaping who you become every time you vent, complain, or rehash what's going wrong? You're not just letting off steam, you're programming your brain to see you as stuck, overwhelmed, or powerless. Carl Jung, the mastermind of modern psychology, taught us that individuation, the journey to becoming your truest, most authentic self, starts with taking control of the narratives we feed our minds. Your brain is like a sponge, soaking up the words and stories you repeat most. If those stories are about your struggles without a path to solutions, you're building a mental prison, not a path to freedom. In this second step, we'll uncover how your brain believes what you repeat and how to rewrite your story for growth, strength, and respect. Let's dive in. Your mind is a powerful tool, but it's also a listener. Carl Jung's concept of individuation highlights that our thoughts and words shape our identity. When you constantly talk about how tough life is, how unfair your boss is, or how nothing ever works out, your brain doesn't just hear you, it believes you. It starts filtering your reality through that lens, noticing every setback, amplifying every frustration, and convincing you that this is who you are, the person who's always struggling. This isn't just psychology, it's neuroscience. Repetition strengthens neural pathways, making those negative stories feel like undeniable truths. The more you say, "I'm overwhelmed," or "I can't catch a break," the more your brain wires itself to expect overwhelm and failure. You're not just venting, you're rehearsing a version of yourself that's stuck. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet David, a 32-year-old freelancer who felt trapped in a cycle of stress. Every time a client rejected his work or a project went south, he'd call his best friend, Mike, and vent. "This client is impossible," he'd say, or "I'm drowning in deadlines." For months, David's conversations were a loop of complaints. He thought he was just blowing off steam, but he started noticing something the more he vented. The less confident he felt, his pitches to new clients sounded desperate, and his work suffered. Why? Because David's constant complaining was wiring his brain to see every challenge as proof he wasn't good enough. His shadow, the fear of failure, was writing his story. Then David stumbled across Carl Jung's idea of individuation, the process of aligning your life with your authentic self. He realized his words were shaping his reality. So, he made a change. Instead of calling Mike to rant about a tough client, he paused and asked himself, "What story am I telling right now? Is it helping me grow?" He started journaling his frustrations, then shifting to solutions. "This client is tough, but I can clarify their expectations," he'd write. Or, "I'm stressed, but I'm figuring it out." Over time, David's conversations changed. When Mike asked how work was going, David said, "It's challenging, but I'm learning to manage tricky clients." Mike noticed the shift he started, asking David for advice, respecting his newfound confidence. By changing what he repeated, David rewired his brain. He wasn't just a freelancer struggling to survive. He became a problem solver, a creator, someone in control of his narrative. This is the power of what you repeat. Carl Jung taught that our psyche thrives when we feed it stories of growth, not defeat. When you keep talking about your problems, you're not just sharing, you're reinforcing a mental blueprint that keeps you small. But when you shift your words to focus on solutions, progress, or even possibility, you start building a new blueprint. You're telling your brain, "I'm capable, I'm moving forward," and your brain listens. It starts noticing opportunities, not just obstacles. It sees you as someone who rises, not someone who rants. So, how do you rewrite your story? First, catch yourself in the act. The next time you're tempted to vent, pause and listen to the words you're about to say. Are they about what's wrong or what's possible? Second, reframe your language. Instead of, "I'm so stressed," try, "I'm navigating a tough moment." Instead of, "Life is unfair," say, "I'm figuring out how to handle this." These small shifts aren't just semantics. They're signals to your brain that you're in control. Third, journal your thoughts before sharing them. Writing helps you process without locking in a negative narrative. Ask, "What's one thing I can do to move forward?" Finally, practice telling a new story. Share your wins, no matter how small. Tell a friend, "I had a rough day, but I handled it by setting a boundary." These stories reinforce your strength, not your struggles. Let's look at another example. Consider Sarah, a 7-year-old teacher who felt stuck in her career. She'd spend hours texting her sister about how her students were unruly or how her principal ignored her ideas. The more she vented, the more she felt like a failure. One day, inspired by Carl Jung's teachings, Sarah decided to change her narrative. Instead of texting, "My students are driving me crazy," she wrote in her journal, "I'm learning how to manage my classroom better." She started sharing small wins with her sister, like, "I tried a new teaching method, and it worked with a few kids." Over time, Sarah's confidence grew. Her sister noticed the change and started asking for her advice. Sarah's new story, "I'm growing," as a teacher became her reality. and her classroom became a place of progress. Not pain. Your words are your power. Carl Jung's Individuation reminds us that becoming your authentic self means choosing what you feed your mind. When you stop repeating stories of struggle and start repeating stories of solutions, you don't just change how you feel, you change who you are. You become someone who doesn't just survive challenges, but thrives through them. People notice that shift. They respect it. They're drawn to it. Why? Because a person who controls their narrative is a person who controls their life. Take this challenge for one day. Replace every complaint with a statement of possibility. Instead of "I'm stuck," say "I'm finding a way." Notice how it feels to rewrite your story. As Carl Jung would say, your mind believes what you repeat, so make it a story worth believing. Stay tuned for the next step, where we'll explore why expecting others to care as much as you do sets you up for disappointment. What if expecting others to care about your problems as much as you do is setting you up for disappointment when you pour your heart out? Hoping for deep understanding or a shoulder to lean on, you're often left feeling unheard, ignored, or even betrayed. Why? Because no one can carry your emotional weight the way you can. Carl Jung, the brilliant mind behind modern psychology, taught us about the persona, the mask we wear to navigate the world. Constantly sharing your problems without discernment erodes that persona, making you seem needy rather than strong. In this third step, we'll explore why expecting others to care as deeply as you do is a losing game, and how to protect your emotional energy by choosing who deserves your story. By mastering this boundary, you'll not only shield your peace, but also earn the respect you crave. Let's dive in. Here's a hard truth. Everyone is fighting their own battles. Your best friend, your co-worker, even your family, they're all juggling their own stress, fears, and problems. When you unload your struggles on them, you're asking them to pause their chaos to dive into yours. Carl Jung's concept of the persona explains why this often backfires. The persona is the face you show the world, carefully crafted to earn respect and connection. But when you overshare, spilling every frustration, fear, or failure, you risk turning your persona into one of neediness or victimhood. People don't connect with that. They distance themselves from it. Not because they don't care about you, but because they're already stretched thin. Expecting them to match your emotional intensity is like asking them to carry a load they didn't sign up for. And when they don't, when they offer a half-hearted, "That's rough," or change the subject, you feel let down. The problem isn't their lack of care, it's your expectation. Let's make this real with a story. Meet Lisa, a 8-year-old marketing assistant who loved sharing her life on social media. Whenever work got tough, a missed promotion, a rude client, or her dating life hit a snag, she'd post long, emotional updates. "Why does everything go wrong for me?" she'd write. Or "I'm so done with dating." She hoped her followers would rally around her, offering support and validation. But after a few likes and generic comments like "hang in there," the engagement fizzled. Lisa felt more alone than ever, wondering why no one seemed to care. Then she came across Carl Jung's idea of the persona. The way we present ourselves shapes how others perceive us. She realized her posts were painting her as someone defined by her problems, not her potential. So, Lisa decided to change. Instead of venting online, she shared a post about a small win. "Tough week at work, but I nailed a client pitch today." The response was different. Friends messaged her, inspired by her resilience. By curating what she shared, Lisa rebuilt her persona as someone strong, not stuck. Her followers didn't just sympathize, they respected her. This is the heart of why no one can care as much as you do. Your problems are deeply personal. tied to your unique experiences, fears, and dreams. No one else lives in your head or feels your pain the way you do. Carl Jung's teachings remind us that expecting others to match your emotional investment is a recipe for disappointment. It's not that people are heartless, it's that they're human. They have their own worries, deadlines, bills, relationships, regrets. When you dump your problems on them, you're asking for more than most can give. And when they fall short, it's easy to feel abandoned. But here's the flip side. When you stop expecting others to carry your emotional load, you free yourself. You stop chasing validation and start building self-reliance. You protect your persona, presenting yourself as someone who navigates challenges, not someone who drowns in them. So, how do you stop this cycle? First, be selective about who you share with. Ask yourself, has this person earned the right to hear my struggles? Reserve your deepest thoughts for those who've shown they can handle them: close friends, family, or a therapist, not casual acquaintances or social media. Second, shift from venting to processing. Before sharing, pause and reflect. Am I seeking sympathy, or am I ready to discuss solutions? If it's sympathy, journal your feelings instead. Writing helps you process without risking your persona. Third, curate your story. Share moments of growth, not just pain. For example, instead of saying, "My job is killing me," try, "Work's been tough, but I'm learning to manage stress better." This shows strength, not struggle. Finally, embrace self-reliance. Recognize that you are the one who cares most about your life, and that's your superpower. You don't need others to validate your pain. You need to validate your ability to overcome it. Let's look at another example. Consider Mark, a 3-4-year-old entrepreneur who used to vent to his business partner about every setback, cash flow issues, difficult clients, or self-doubt. He thought it built trust, but his partner started pulling away, offering vague responses. Mark felt dismissed. After reading about Carl Jung's persona, he realized his constant venting made him seem unstable, not relatable. So, he changed his approach. Instead of unloading every worry, he shared only when he had a plan. Cash flow's tight, he'd say, "But I'm researching new funding options." His partner responded with enthusiasm, offering ideas and respect. By being selective, Mark strengthened his persona as a leader, not a complainer. Carl Jung's wisdom on the persona teaches us that how we present ourselves shapes how others treat us. When you stop expecting people to care as much as you do, you stop setting yourself up for disappointment. You start protecting your emotional energy, choosing who gets access to your inner world. This isn't about hiding your struggles, it's about sharing them with purpose. You become someone who doesn't need constant validation, someone who commands respect by showing resilience. Try this for one day. Share only what reflects your strength. If you're tempted to vent, ask, does this person need to know this? Does it serve my growth? You'll be amazed at how people respond when you show up as a problem solver, not a problem sharer. As Carl Jung would say, your persona is your power. Use it to build a life where respect comes naturally. Stay tuned for the final step, where we'll explore how silence and action can transform your life. What if the most powerful moments in your life happen not when you speak, but when you stay silent and act? Constantly venting your problems might feel like release, but it's often just noise, a distraction from the real work of solving them. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, taught us about self-integration, the process of aligning your actions with your deepest values to become whole. When you choose silence over endless complaining and action over empty words, You reclaim your power. You stop waiting for others to fix your world and start building it yourself. In this final step, we'll explore why silence and action are your greatest strengths and how they can transform your life into one of confidence, respect, and purpose. Let's dive in. Silence isn't about bottling up your emotions. It's about giving yourself space to process, reflect, and grow. Carl Jung's concept of self-integration emphasizes that true strength comes from within, not from external validation. When you vent to everyone around you, you're scattering your energy, seeking answers from others instead of yourself. But when you pause, sit with your discomfort, and ask, what does this pain teach me? You tap into a deeper wisdom. Silence allows you to hear your own voice, to uncover solutions that were drowned out by the noise of complaining. And when you pair that silence with actions, small, intentional steps toward change, you're not just talking about your problems, you're solving them. This shift from words to deeds is what makes you magnetic, someone others can't help but respect. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Mark, a 6-year-old entrepreneur struggling to keep his startup afloat. Cash flow was tight, clients were demanding, and self-doubt was creeping in. Every evening, Mark would call his sister, venting about his stress. "This business is killing me," or "I don't know if I can do this." The calls left him drained, and his sister's sympathy didn't solve anything. One day, Mark came across Carl Jung's idea of self-integration, living in alignment with your values to become your truest self. He realized his venting was a way to avoid facing his fears of failure. So, he decided to try silence and action instead. The next time he felt overwhelmed, he didn't call his sister. He sat quietly, journaled his thoughts, and asked, "What's one thing I can do right now?" He identified a small step: emailing a potential investor with a clear pitch. The response was positive, sparking hope. Over weeks, Mark replaced venting with action, reaching out to clients, streamlining his budget, even meditating to clear his mind. His sister noticed the change. "You seem so focused now," she said. Mark's startup began to stabilize. But more importantly, he felt in control. By choosing silence to reflect and action to move forward, he became a leader, not a complainer. This is the power of silence and action. Carl Jung taught that integrating your values into your life creates a sense of wholeness that radiates outward. When you stop broadcasting your problems, you conserve your energy for what matters, solving them. Silence gives you clarity. Action gives you results. Together, they rewrite your story from one of struggle to one of strength. People don't respect those who endlessly complain. They respect those who quietly get to work. Why? Because action speaks louder than words, and silence signals confidence. When you stop talking about what's wrong and start doing something about it, you show the world and yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. So, how do you harness this power? First, embrace silence as a tool. The next time you feel the urge to vent, pause for 3 minutes, breathe, sit with your emotions, and ask, "What's this trying to tell me?" Journal your thoughts to process them privately. This isn't suppression, it's self-leadership. Second, identify one small action. It doesn't have to be huge. Maybe it's scheduling a tough conversation, researching a solution, or taking a walk to reset. The key is to move, not just talk. Third, limit who you share with. Save your struggles for a trusted few, those who've earned your vulnerability, and focus on sharing progress, not pain. Finally, celebrate your actions. Every step forward, no matter how small, is proof of your power. Tell a friend, I was stressed, but I handled it by taking this step. This reinforces your new narrative of strength. Let's look at another example. Consider Emily, a 30-year-old nurse who felt overwhelmed by long shifts and a toxic work environment. She used to vent to her co-workers daily, "This place is a nightmare," or "I can't keep up." The complaints didn't fix anything. They made her feel more trapped. Inspired by Carl Jung's teachings, Emily decided to try silence and action. Instead of venting, she spent her breaks journaling, asking, "What can I control here?" She started small, requesting a schedule change to avoid burnout. When that worked, she felt empowered to take bigger steps, like applying for a leadership role. Her co-workers noticed her shift. They stopped seeing her as the complainer and started seeking her advice. Emily's silence gave her clarity, and her actions gave her confidence. She wasn't just surviving her job, she was shaping it. Silence and action are your superpower. Carl Jung's self-integration reminds us that true growth happens when you align your actions with your values, not when you seek others' approval. When you stop venting and start acting, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and become the architect of your life. People notice that shift. They're drawn to it. They respect it. Why? Because someone who chooses silence over chaos and action over excuses is someone who's in charge. Try this challenge for one day. Replace every urge to complain with a moment of silence and one small action. If you're stressed about work, write down one task you can tackle. If a relationship feels heavy, have a calm conversation instead of ranting. Notice how it feels to hold your power instead of giving it away. As Carl Jung would say, integrating your values through action is how you become whole, and that wholeness commands respect. Stay tuned for our outro, where we'll tie these steps together and ignite your journey to a stronger, more authentic you. Imagine a version of you so grounded, so in control, that your presence alone commands respect. That's the power of the 4 steps we've explored today. Inspired by Carl Jung's timeless wisdom on individuation, the journey to becoming your truest, most authentic self. From understanding how emotional dumping drains your power, to realizing your brain believes what you repeat, to accepting that no one can care as deeply as you do, to embracing silence and action as your strength. These aren't just lessons. They're a blueprint for reclaiming your life. You're not here to vent, to seek sympathy, or to stay stuck. You're here to rise, to take charge, and to live a life that reflects your deepest values. Let's wrap this up with a story that shows what happens when you stop telling people your problems and start owning your power. Meet Sarah, a 33-year-old graphic designer who used to feel like life was slipping through her fingers. She'd vent to friends about her toxic job, her endless to-do list, and her self-doubt, hoping their support would make her feel better. But it didn't. She felt more stuck, more unseen. Then Sarah discovered Carl Jung's teachings on self-integration, the process of aligning your actions with your values. She decided to stop the cycle of emotional dumping. Instead of texting friends about her struggles, she journaled her thoughts, asking, "What can I control?" She took small actions, updating her portfolio, setting boundaries with her boss, and sharing only her wins, like landing a new client. Within months, Sarah's life transformed. Her friends stopped offering pity and started seeking her advice. Her confidence soared, and she landed a dream project that matched her talents. Why? Because Sarah stopped broadcasting her pain and started building her purpose. She became the person Carl Jung envisioned: whole, resilient, and magnetic. That's the life waiting for you when you embrace these 4 steps. You're not just stopping the habit of venting, you're rewriting your story. You're stepping into a version of you that doesn't need validation, that doesn't beg for sympathy, that doesn't wait for permission to shine. As Carl Jung would say, this is your journey to individuation, where every choice to stay silent, to act, to own your narrative, brings you closer to the person you were born to be. So, what's your next step? Pick one action from today. Maybe it's journaling instead of venting, reframing a complaint into a solution, or choosing who deserves your story. And start right now. Notice how the world shifts when you do. If this video hit home, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Young Psyche Hub and hit the bell to never miss a guide to unlocking your authentic self. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. A friend, a colleague, anyone ready to stop venting and start rising. And drop a comment below. What's one problem you'll stop sharing and start solving today? Let's spark a movement of people who choose silence, action, and strength over complaints. Your journey to a life of power and purpose starts now. Make it unstoppable.